People like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-555-2085. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-555-2085. 800-555-2085.
Not to be a backseat driver, but if you need to hire great people fast, you need Indeed. Sponsor a job, and you'll immediately get a list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. More at Indeed.com/credit.
7:07, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time and Jim.
Eastbound I-80 traffic is stop and go from Cicero to Kedzie. There's a truck crash blocking the right shoulder. Northbound I-65 has delay approaching the Indiana Toll Road. There's a crash blocking the two left lanes. Inbound Edens, 15 minutes. Lake Hook to Montrose. Kennedy getting heavier now. 43 minutes. O'Hare to downtown. 29 from Montrose. 23 in the Express. Inbound Eisenhower from 390 to downtown. It's 41 minutes. 27 from Wolf. Stevenson, 41 minutes. 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Ryan, 16 minutes. 95th to downtown. I-57 looking green on our map, 11 minutes. I-80 to the merge. Bishop Ford also 11. Northbound Lakeshore Drive's getting congested approaching Roosevelt. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Worried about basement flooding? It's time to call Permaseal 800-421-SEAL. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast. In our AM 560 Weather Center, our AccuWeather meteorologist, Steve Williams.
Today and tonight, rather cloudy. High today, 77. Low tonight, 56. Partly sunny for tomorrow, the high 84. Partly sunny, breezy, warm day Friday, the high 88. Warmer temperatures means the inside of your car can heat up fast. Make sure you have your keys and your kids. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
55 at O'Hare. Next news at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. And Wendell Cox is a noted demographer, and he went through the Census Bureau data to identify the 5 largest cities in the United States that's lost population over the last decade, as well as the cities with population gains of 20% or more, which may someday become among the largest cities. We'll see. The 5 largest cities in the United States that lost population over the last decade.
Oh, can I guess?
Sure.
Can we do the Detroit?
Yes. That's
New York
one.
City?
No.
Chicago?
Yes. Number 5.
That's number 5, really?
Yeah.
And Detroit's number 1, huh?
Detroit's number 1. It's like playing Family Feud.
Mm-hmm.
Survey says. And Baltimore.
Baltimore. All right. What else?
Long Beach,
California. Okay.
and Milwaukee.
Really?
Yeah, on a percentage basis, yeah. Although, as we talked to Steve Moore, some of these numbers, the census data, strikes me as a little bit cooked. I don't have any evidence to prove that, but it just doesn't seem to square with a lot of the reporting and the sort of annualized data that we've talked about with respect to migration, but okay. So anyway, those are the 5 cities that have lost the most population over the last decade, 5 largest cities that lost population. And I mean, you think about Detroit, Baltimore, Milwaukee, Chicago. Gee, I wonder if there's any common attributes of those cities that might be driving people away. By contrast, the cities with population gains of 20% or more, you won't be surprised that they're in places like Texas and North Carolina and Florida and Arizona. But in addition to Fort Worth, Austin, Charlotte, Tampa, and Mesa, Denver and Seattle. Now, remember, Washington State doesn't have an income tax. But it's not just taxes that drive migration. It's, people live complete lives. So it's the quality of life. Then that includes the quality of institutions that are important to your life, whether it be schools or hospitals, healthcare infrastructure, and so forth. So it's always a more complicated decision than it's usually discussed in the media. But there are attributes that seem to be in common in both lists, and one is with respect to those losing population, crime, public safety. Yeah. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by David Harsanyi. She's a senior writer for National Review and author of the book First Freedom. David, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
So one of those cities that has a crime problem didn't make the list, at least not yet, for the 2020 census is Portland. And recently, despite the fact that ANTIFA, members of ANTIFA almost killed journalist Andy Ngo, recently the press has realized that there's something going on in Portland, and it has to do with this thing that was just an idea during the presidential campaign that now apparently has metamorphosized into a real thing, and that's Antifa and the violence associated and sort of lawlessness associated with Antifa in Portland.
Right, which, anyone who was really paying attention knew was going on all year last year, and actually it's been going on for a long time in the city of Portland. You have not just Antifa, engaging in radical violence and ideology in general. You have just the city council cutting, I think it was $15 million from the budget of the police department. They don't have enough cops to patrol neighborhoods that need it most, and crime has just spiked this year. And the summer's coming, where it usually spikes even more. So I think there were 5 times as many murders this year so far as there were a year ago.
And with respect to sort of the continuing incidents of violent crime in these major cities that we saw begin over the summer and continue into this year, there's no indication that there's going to be any policy change from these Democrat mayors. That's what we're talking about, biggest cities in the country. And so the political implications, there's a lot of suggestion that these mayors and in some respects governors are cruising for a real reckoning come November of 2022. Now, that's still more than a year away, but it's really hard to change the trajectory when you've turned your city over to groups like Antifa or gangbangers like in Chicago.
Yeah, I don't, there are some cities like Baltimore which have been on this trajectory a very long time, and nothing really changes there. I grew up in New York, and in the 70s and 80s, even the 90s, there were tons of, there's crime. It was a dangerous place to be. And then finally, Rudy Giuliani was elected, mostly because of certain neighborhoods in Staten Island and Brooklyn and elsewhere. He helped turn around the city, and it wasn't just him. There was gentrification going on and a sort of economic renewal, I guess. But in the end, they turned back to sort of liberals to run their cities, and you're back to where you are. So I don't know what kind of trajectory there would be as far as politics goes. The unfortunate trajectory, I think, is that I lived in Denver for many years as well, is that you have a lot of people fleeing Chicago and New York, but they bring all their bad ideas with them and then turn those cities into bad places as well.
So were you surprised at all with the recent turmoil and bombings in Israel and Hamas, that Antifa is publicly backing Hamas and their actions against Israel?
Oh, no. The hard left, the far left, since going back to Marx, has always been on the side of people they believe are oppressed and against the colonizers. And also there's always an anti-Semitic element to it as well. When it comes to Israel and Jews, I think that anti-Zionism is just a new front for anti-Semitism in most places, and so I'm not surprised that the Squad or Antifa or any other sort of left-wing group is pro-Hamas. It's history says that that's where they belong,
or maybe even Black Lives Matter. The former, she's still a co-founder, but she recently resigned, Patrisse Cullors, This is what she had to say about Israel at a 2015 Harvard Law Human Rights Campaign Symposium entitled Globalizing Ferguson, Racialized Policing and International Resistance. I'm sure you missed that. Here's what she said.
Actions always. The other thing I'll say is Palestine is our generation South Africa. And if we don't step up boldly and courageously to end the imperialist project that's called Israel, we're doomed.
And the imperialist project called Israel, and that's not why she resigned, because comments from past events are coming up. She resigned because, of course, there's internal heat because she's living a relatively lavish lifestyle, it would seem, on all the corporate money that Black Lives Matter has raised.
Yeah, I mean, and her position, which is held by many people on the far left, is that Palestine, which is a non-existent entity until Israel allows that to happen, frankly, is all of Israel, not the occupied territory. It has nothing to do with the 1967 armistice lines. It has to do with 1948 and the creation of a Jewish state. What's incredible is that they call Israel an imperialist project and sort of frame it as a racist state. Meanwhile, Arabs who live in Israel have more rights than Arabs in any Arab country, liberal rights that matter. So it's a complete perversion of reality, and I guess we shouldn't be surprised by the people who back and root for Hamas.
Do you see any rethinking of Black Lives Matter by corporate America in particular? I mean, the financing is key to what they're able to do and the impact they're able to have, as well as the influence they hold over the Democrat Socialists. Any recriminations there that you're picking up on, or is this going to be they're just going to be more and more ascendant, the Marxists who use race as their cover for Marxism in that party?
I don't know that I've seen any corporate backing away. I mean, I think that after last summer there was a bit of a cool down, especially when you looked at polling about people's perceptions of Black Lives Matter. Once it turned violent in certain places, I think there was sort of people pulled back. But corporations are terrified to say anything or not participate. I mean, we all got emails from every company we ever dealt with supporting Black Lives Matter, sports, leagues, etc. Just like we have now with Pride. People are very nervous not to participate. It's like, I don't know,
right.
If you've watched Seinfeld, but it's like, who doesn't wear the ribbon episode in Seinfeld.
Yes.
So everyone must wear the ribbon, and people are scared to speak up. But that doesn't mean that there isn't, latent, worry about these sort of movements. I think there is. We'll see how that pans out. But no, I think corporate America, they're risk averse and they're cowardly most of the time when it comes to this sort of thing. So they do whatever they think they have to.
It seems to me that conservatives would be better served, rather than decrying Black Lives Matter, is to amplify the comments of the Alicia Garces and Patrisse Cullors and Ibram Kendis of the world. Give them broader platform. Make sure everybody hears them, so they can't sort of work in the shadows through institutions that are controlled by their fellow travelers the way that they do. I mean, if you hear what Patrisse Cullors and Alicia Garza and Kendi and others have to actually say, it may, to borrow a term, wake some people up about just how silly and, frankly, dangerous their positions are.
Yeah, but it's very hard to break through to the majority of people because media is corrupt. Modern political media is corrupt, and they do not amplify or cover these things in the way that they should, because they're also scared or that they're also radicalized. I think a lot of the young reporters today are, far leftist as well. A lot of the journalism professors you see on Twitter, they say things that are just absolutely insane in my mind. So it's very difficult to believe that that's going to change anytime soon either.
I know. I just don't know what else to do other than, if they can't be indicted with their own words, then, I'm sort of at a loss.
If you
go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is not. Jesse Jackson used to shake down companies as well, and Al Sharpton did the same thing, and they said, Jesse Jackson talked about Hymietown, and others said terrible things. And I think people are just nervous to be branded racist, and they're scared to make these arguments. It's sort of easy for me or for you probably, because we are sort of, we're protected in some sense because we're in this world.
Right.
Person who just works in a corporation, for them to stand up, it's actually something they risk a lot, and things that I don't risk. So it's difficult.
Well, right, but I suppose though that as this radiates out, maybe if people knew that they weren't in a safe place by being silent. For example, there was this teacher going back to Portland, this 8th grade teacher named Catherine Watkins. Here's what she had to say on a Zoom call with her colleagues about whatever they were talking about. Well, in part, it was anti-racist, quote-unquote, curriculum. Here's what she had to say about where this is going. And again, Zoom call with fellow teachers at this grade school she teaches at in Portland.
Catherine Watkins, 8th grade humanities teacher at Cedar Park Middle School, and my pronouns are she, her, we, and us. I'm going to say something that's not nice and not sweet, but it's true. If you're not evolving into an anti-racist educator, you're making yourself obsolete in this field of profession. Our district is only getting browner and browner with our children. And so if, obviously you can't change your melanin, all right, but you can change your mind so that you can actually function in a district that is full of BIPOC children. So if you're being resistant, I understand that, but you're going to have to eventually come to the light, because if you're going to keep with those old views of colonialism, it's going to lead to being fired because
So maybe if grade school teachers around America heard what Miss Watkins and her fellow travelers have in mind for the teaching profession, maybe that would alert them to say, well, if obviously they can make the choice to go along, as many do, but if that's not what they got into teaching to do, that's not how they want to teach, they're on notice.
It's authoritarian in the sense that they run the schools and they don't let you have any choice over where you send your kids. I mean, if you're not rich, and then they tell you exactly what you have to teach, and then they tell the teachers they're going to be fired if they don't teach, this Orwellian anti-racist curriculum. And and she sounds, no offense, I guess I do intend offense. She sounds dumb, right? I mean, she probably doesn't know what she's talking about. And you who might be educated on these things can't even fight back. You will be fired. So I don't know. I think that people will at some point, it will hit them what's going on. But parents are also probably pretty scared, and I'm not sure. But there has to be some blowback. Yes, I just don't know how it happens, and I think it will probably be pretty ugly.
He is David Harsanyi, senior writer for National Review, author of First Freedom, A Ride Through America's Enduring History with the Gun, From the Revolution to Today. David, thanks as always.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Free up your time. With Steel, you can spend less time working on your yard and more time doing the things you love. Not sold at Lowe's or the Home Depot, Steel is only available through our 10,000 local Steel dealers. Real Steel. Find yours at steeldealers.com. Lowe's and the Home Depot are trademarks of their respective companies.